Alright folks, just a quick word before we get into the video. I've been making videos now for a number of years and I have been using this little camera here. For the most part I've been using this little camera here. This is a hat cam, it fits on the peak of my cap. Those of you who are regular viewers will be familiar with my orange cap that I wear almost all the time fishing. And there's a little fitting and this fits on the top and it's just basically stop and go. It's a very, very limited technology, if you like. It's old hat, and but it's given up the ghost. So I was kind of disappointed because it's like an old friend. I've been using it for so long and I'm very familiar with it. And like I say, it was very simple to use. So quite a few people have remarked on the quality of the videos that I make, i.e. the resolution and all that sort of stuff that I'm not a professional filmmaker, so a lot of it I don't fully understand, and a lot of people have suggested that I upgrade the camera. And now that this one has given up the ghost, or as we say around here, has calved, well, I have now replaced it with this here. This here is a GoPro Hero 10. Now, in comparison to my old camera, this has, well, it's a huge advance because it can do a whole lot of stuff that I don't fully understand, and it can do amazing things that I probably will never understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set this up to try and work as simply as possible. And from now on I will be using this to make videos, or at least partly, because sometimes I use other cameras as well. But this one will be my principal. It'll also fit on the peak of my cap, and it's going to be interesting because all the stuff, there's so much, the amount of technology in this little box here is just incredible really, and I'd never be able to learn it all. Older guys like me find it, well, I'll speak for myself, I find it difficult enough to learn technological things. So I'm going to try and set this up to work as simply as possible, and hopefully be able to provide you with even better quality video in the future. They don't come cheap, by the way. When I bought this camera, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, I think I paid somewhere around €100 at the time. This camera has cost near enough €500. But anyway, it will bring you better quality video in the future. Now, just one more thing I'd like to mention. I'd like to thank all the people who have contributed to my Patreon page. Very much appreciated indeed. So thanks again to everyone who's got involved that way in supporting the channel. So with that much said, and that little update given to you about what's going on vis-a-vis the channel, here comes the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello once again folks, and you're very welcome along to another video from Gundog and Fly. It's a beautiful morning here on the bank of the river, and bra a bio. It's great to be alive. And over the years I have guided and tutored many people from all over the world on this river here. And I've seen virtually every type of angler you can possibly imagine. From those who had no idea whatsoever to very accomplished anglers, and everywhere in between. And what I've also noticed is that there are problems that are common to most of them, even experienced anglers. And today I'm going to address one of those issues, one of those problems, one of those things that mitigate against anglers getting the best out of their fly fishing. So first thing is, I'm going to show you what that problem is, and then I'm going to show you how to remedy it. So be sure to stay with me, it's coming your way right after this.
So now you're out fishing on the river, trout are rising, you got the right fly, you cast your fly to the trout, and the trout obligingly comes up, takes your fly, you strike and you miss. Now, there can be numerous reasons why you might miss a trout in a given situation. You fail to hook it, it could be any number of reasons. But the one that I have noticed to be the most common is the line not being greased. If your line sinks any distance under the water, be it an inch, be it 6 inches, once it sinks under the water, when the trout comes up and obliges you by taking the fly, you then strike, you will almost inevitably miss. You will miss 9 times out of 10 if your line is under the water. That's true in the case of a dry fly, and it's also true in the case of upstream nymphing. If your line is under the water, you have to pull it through the water, thereby providing a delay, and you're too late, you will miss. So the most important thing to do if you're upstream nymphing, well, it's one of the most important things at least, if you're upstream nymphing or if you're dry fly fishing, is to grease your line. Now I have my rod, as you can see, strategically placed here on this bench, and my fly is attached just here to this tree. So I have approximately 6 or 7 yards of line here, and it's imperative that this be greased all the way down along, and that at least half the leader is greased. Now, there are many potions available, gink being one, mucilin another, paillette paste, and there's a few varieties of grease. It makes no real difference what grease you use, as long as you have your line floating high on the surface. When your line's floating high on the surface, you have an immediate contact. The second you lift your rod, you have an immediate contact with that fish, thereby increasing your catch rate. Now, how often would you necessarily have to grease your line? Well, that depends on obviously how much casting you do and a range of other factors, like some rivers have different surface tensions than others. You might, basically the best time to grease your line is when you see it starting to sink. And of course, you can spend a lot of money on a line or little money on a line, and it'll make, from my point of view and from my experience, very little difference. All lines inevitably sink, irrespective of how much you've paid for them or what taper they have or all the different blurb that you'll hear about technical this, technical that. They will all inevitably sink. At some point they will begin to sink, and they will have to be treated with grease in order to keep them floating high on the surface. If you do this, if you grease your line regularly, once you spot it starting to sink, if you do this regularly, you will inevitably increase your catch rate. So that's it. That's my #1 tip for fly fishers. I think it's probably the most common fault I've seen. Now, there are a few others as well, which I'll get to in time, but this one is definitely the most common fault. And when I point it out to people and they correct it, they inevitably increase their catch rate. That's the facts of the matter. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, you might consider subscribing. Also, there's a link in the description if you want to support the channel to my Patreon page. That would be very much appreciated. So that's it. Until the next time, go dí an céadúr eile, go dí go casfar ar a chéile a roismuid bígí sláin agus bígí ag iascaracht. Slán tamil.